Our esteemed viewers, welcome to the tower at UNN once again this week. My name is Dr. Juko, as usual, the host and the presenter of the show. Uganda is under terror attack. On Tuesday, the 16th, Kampala, the capital of Uganda, was attacked with bomb. The two explosions rocked the city center within 5 minutes of each one another. The police spokesperson said surveillance footage showed an adult male carrying a backpack detonating himself at 10 a.m. local time in East Africa, near the Central Police Station and also near the Parliament. This leaves a lot of questions to our viewers and the Ugandans at large. Whether the government is saying the truth. There are several hypothetical questions that come across. One, was this really done by terrorists as the government says? If so, what was the target of the bombers? Why did the bombers target a smaller audience anyway? I believe terrorists always target bigger audiences, but this time, small audiences. Big question. Another question, how did the police learn this, the bombers' names, yet they say they died instantly? Another question, why was the other suspect that police said was trailed without extracting, were killed without, or that suspect was killed without getting or extracting enough information from him? And another question, why a witch hunt on the Muslims? Why are the Muslims the only ones that are being witch hunted over this? Mr. President, you said even when you were in Bush War, you named yourself Qasim. Is this the way you are paying Muslims? Mr. President said that you are going for the terrorists all out. I believe terrorists don't have a front. They just attack from any angle. Do you think this arrogance will work on terror anyway, if it is there and true? Now, the number of people that have been killed in the names of suspect have superseded the victims. But why kill people before taking them to court? That's the big question today. With me in the studios, I have Lawrence Semgoma, as usual, who is our forensic analyst. He's going to dig deep into this discussion with his expertise as a forensic analyst. Welcome to the show, Lawrence.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko, for once again inviting me to the show. It's indeed an honor always coming to the tower and meeting our viewers visually across the world to dig deep into pertinent issues that are affecting our brothers and sisters back home and trying to make sense of what is happening and maybe help equip our brothers out there with knowledge, and the sisters as well, with knowledge to wish to protect themselves, because knowledge is power, and I believe what you know will always keep you safe. If you know something that could harm you, you know how to protect yourself just by that. So I'm indeed glad to be part of this show tonight, and I look forward to having a fruitful discussion with all the participants of the show. Thank you so much, Dr. Juko, and all fellow panelists.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have also in the studio, Maurice Otieno. Maurice, you're welcome to the tower at UNN.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko. I'm really happy to be here to join this very good conversation. about terrorism in our motherland, Africa, and particularly Uganda. We'll be listening much and we'll be discussing, going deeply in whatever thing is happening, whether it is true or not, the roots of this terrorism in our motherland, and all kind of things. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. In the studio, once again, I have Honorable Winnie Chiza. Honorable, you are welcome to the tower. Go ahead, Honorable. Yes, we're gonna get in touch with Honorable. Let's start with the discussion. Lawrence, you seem to be a forensic analyst, and you must be aware of you must have made a good diagnosis of this. I want to start with you. Was that terror a reality or a myth? Yes. Let me have Morris. Morris, you have an experience of the in the Kenyan situation because Kenya has been too much hit by this kind of situation. Would you please tell us exactly your history of the terror attack that has been in Kenya as well?
So, thank you, Dr. Juko. First of all, what we have to know and understand particularly is that jihadists have long been active in Africa for some time. I want to dwell back on history about terrorism and its effects. So, in modern times, the late Al-Qaeda did Osama bin Laden made South Sudan, his base before moving back to Afghanistan, started in 1996. Another group of terrorists and Nigerian Boko Haram movement, famous for kidnapping hundreds of schools in Chibok in 2014, carried out major attacks after declaring jihad in 2010. So, what we are witnessing today about terrorism is that it's a competition increasing between the rival jihadist groups. The threat of terrorism in the region is so far increasing. I think even the U.S. State Department coordinator for counterterrorism is on record saying that the operations of both the Al-Qaeda and IS is much shifting away from the heartland in Syria, Iraq, to affiliates in the West and East Africa. And this is where Uganda, and particularly Kenya, is coming in, because whatever happens in Uganda spills back to Kenya, or rather the neighboring countries. So, like, because of the rivalry of this terrorist group, that is why the shift is now moving back to their to affiliates of Iraq and Syria. So, what is happening to the government is what we need to ask ourselves: are the government in place really on watch, really key, putting in an eye key on what things is happening on the ground? The intelligence you're getting from maybe the UK, the US about terrorism, are they putting in place measures to protect the citizens, the people? So we have a lot of questions to ask, and I want us to dwell on that also, and perhaps we'll find solutions, and maybe see if these things are being just planted, are they real or not real? But we have to look into it. Are the people that are involved in terrorism, are they our own people, or people coming, being welcomed in our country?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maurice. Maurice is a Kenyan by origin, but living in America. He's trying to dig into what is happening in Kenya and the region as well. Lawrence, before I bring in Lawrence, I honored to have Mr. Chendo. Mr. Chendo, you're welcome at the tower once again.
Thank you, Dr. Joko. I thank you. I'm happy. I think I have again rejoined. I have had some bit of some challenges here, but right now I'm back and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Honorable, I wonder whether Honorable can hear us now. Yes, Lawrence. Lawrence, I was asking your question, is the terror that we are looking at in Uganda is a reality or a myth? Okay, hope we have a problem with Lawrence.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor. I'm sorry I couldn't hear you earlier, but I think right now the sound is okay.
Yes, go ahead, Lawrence.
Well, yes, if I may just get down to, having a bird's eye view to what terrorism is and what it encompasses and how we are perceiving it today. It's we'll just first of all begin with terrorism in itself. What is it, or who carries it out anyway, and what are the effects of terrorism globally on law-abiding citizens of any nation, per se. So terrorism, if you just look at just the dictionary definition of it, the Oxford language, is just unlawful use of violence or intimidation against civilians. And in most cases, it's all done in pursuit of some political aims. If you look at that definition, it sort of excludes freedom fighters from this target group of terrorism. But again, they are still part of it, and that is the dilemma within global terrorism today, in that it sort of excludes those who are actually trying to liberate citizens from maybe dictatorial regimes around the world, because those who do are going to be perceived as terrorists. So terrorism per se today is sort of a double-edged sword, which is just focusing on the real-world issue and threat, yet at the same time excludes those who might actually be trying to keep the world safer and trying to remove those elements of politicians that have refused to leave power and maybe are also suppressing their own people. So that is the dilemma within terrorism. That's why it's sort of confusing, like what happens, or what just happened in Uganda this week, where a bomb goes off and all of a sudden, yes, it's the rebels who are responsible, the names are there, and there's all that other information that comes up, and they really have leads and they're running after people, left, right, and center. It's commendable if this is done in good faith, that the government is able to identify terrorists in society and actually pursue them.
Lawrence,
of course, the question for the Curse of Uganda is, yes, it's been done so fast.
Lawrence, we seem to be having trouble with the transmission.
Yes, please, I can hear you, Dr. Jacob.
Yes, let's have a short break and then we come back.
Time takes a toll on everyone, they say. Time is merciless, it won't wait for us to change. Time, I am stressing out, I can't figure out what to say. Oh, time, just give us time. Time, looking back on pictures, and I find it hard to see you and myself in places where we
welcome back to the tower at UNN once again. My name is Dr. Juko. We are trying to discuss, dig into the situation that had occurred in Uganda this week. Let me have Mr. Chendo. Mr. Chendo, you've been following all this stuff. Would you please look at what is terror a reality in Uganda? What has happened before, which you can relate to that was a part of terror in Uganda?
And all other discussants. Well, when we talk of terrorism, we should know terrorism means nothing but it means war. Where there is terror in this respect, there should be war. It's not a question of terrorism, but it is war. Now the question would be, who is it that is fighting and for what? Now that's a very big question that seeks an answer, because as far as we are concerned, well, it's not just a myth. The reality is bombs have been thrown in buses, on buildings like near IPS building, to the Central Police Station. So that's the reality. And some people have died. The myth is rather who is doing this. I would think whoever has been throwing or whoever intends to throw these bombs needs to be identified by himself, because he should have reason. He should be showing, you see, here I am. Because in most cases, we have seen these other, the ISIS, and those other, the Al-Qaeda, they have been able to say, yes, we have done this, we are about to do this, but the silence about who is doing what now makes it a myth. Is now some people would like to think, is it actually the government throwing these bombs? Or are there some other people who are doing this? Now, it is very, very disturbing that, you know, what's disturbing about these bombs is that at least there is the element of suicide bomb in Uganda. Suicide? I think that's the myth, because as far as I know Ugandans, I have seen Ugandans since 1966. Ugandans were attacked, the Baganda were attacked in 1966. Obote was able to kill these people within a very short time. Amin did the same, even Museveni did the same. Actually, he attacked people in 2009. Within a very short time, he had killed the riots. Just recently, last year, I don't see Ugandans coming in as suicide bombers. That's a myth. Now, I'm really thinking there's something which has not been explained in as far as we are concerned. Well, I want to take it, yes, that they are terrorists, but my problem is, who are they? What are they up to? Okay, in as long as, because whoever fights a war has a reason for it, and he should make that reason explicit. Now, in this instant case, we don't see anyone coming to claim, but the president has been quick to say, well, these are ADFs. But I want to think, if ADF is a reality somewhere, they would even be very happy to say, you see, we have been able to carry out this and that. Now, in the absence of any information about that, we are really very skeptical to accept that it is actually ADF. And in as far as we are concerned, the president has always been saying ADF has been decimated. I don't think it has this capacity to come up with this. So, as it's already been said, that there is terrorism. If there is terrorism, that means there is a war. And there is no war where we have only one side, because in this respect, it is only now the government of Uganda. The question is, which is the other side, which is putting up this war through terrorism.
Let me bring in Maurice. Maurice, you seem to have heard what Mr. Chendo is saying. It seems like we have a big problem. People have lost trust in countries in Africa, whereby even if something happens, they feel like it is a myth. You know, people tend to think that there is something that a government or governments are cooking. What's your take about this? Where is the trust? What is the will of the people? I mean, of the governments in Uganda to do all that to cover up that gap, that lap?
I think there's a lot of mistrust between government and its citizenry, because whatever thing is happening on the ground, sometimes you find, like, whatever thing that happened in Uganda, people are not believing it fully. Like, this was an act of terrorism, or rather, a government trying to do something fishy in order to maybe manipulate something or something of that sort. So, and for us to solve this issue about terrorism on the ground, and the mistrust in people are having in the government, this comes back to the old challenge of creating the economic opportunities and political stability that eventually steer people away from life of violence. The same thing I ask myself: are the terrorists actually people amongst us, or people who came from neighboring countries, or just visitors that we welcome? So these are some of the key things we need to be asking ourselves, like, to solve all these issues altogether. Because if terrorists came in, how did they come in? Is the government aware of them? Are they visitors who came in? Are they our people? These extremists. Because as far much as we're concerned right now, is that the violence, the terrorist acts are really spreading across Africa, and most importantly because of the rivalry they're having between the jihadist groups. So once we get that trust intact between the people and the government, then we can be looking forward and steering people through better economic opportunities, and we have a political stability that can actually help people achieve much better, not to look back and join extremist groups that will bring us a loss of lives in the acts of terrorism.
Thank you very much, Maurice. Lawrence, I wonder whether you can be able to hear me, Lawrence. Lawrence, it seems like everything that is happening into, I mean, in a kind of dire state, because people are not very certain of what really happened, what is happening. They are thinking possibly it is a cooked up story, which, I mean, it doesn't have a real tell. Would you deep into that and we find out exactly?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Juko, once again. Well, at the moment, what we have is, I think we all saw the video, at least those who are into different social media, channels and groups. I think it was shared all over, Facebook and especially WhatsApp, where we all have so many community groups and family groups. People shared the video of how this suicide bomber, just walks up right to the front of the CPS. There are two cars in front of there. He doesn't seem to be interested in getting closer to the cars or even into CPS, but then he just detonates in the middle of the road. Now, of course, casualties, were eminent in the fact that happened at that moment. So this terrorist is just in the middle of the road, seemingly just, not even minding, or it looks like he doesn't even know that he's carrying a bomb at that point. And, off he goes. Of course, we see him reaching for his phone, which may be the phone call is what detonated the bomb. This is just theory. This is just one working theory. The other one could be that maybe someone else detonated the bomb who was close by, or something of the sort. But when I look at that video as it came out, of course, you start from having a hypothesis of how this could have happened in the first place. Yes, there is a man. This time it's not a woman. And this doesn't look like it's a child, it's a grown man. probably middle-aged person, within the 20s, 30s, or 40s. And then, yes, he has this other very heavy bag on him that uh, is having the explosive, at least to the best of our knowledge, by the facts that are relayed in the video. And yes, the bomb goes off in the middle of the road. Of course, policemen are claimed, policemen are killed in that explosion, and a few bystanders who are, a few citizens minding their own business. Now, I would ask the question, or even before I start asking the question, that is what we have. The person comes up, he detonates himself in the middle of the road. And I think there were two bombs. There was another one happening not so far from that exact location. Um, this looks like, yes, it is a suicide bomber, because yes, there is a bomb, and yes, there is a person who is willing to go and blow up himself. Those are two characteristics of suicide bombers. They always blow themselves up, and usually they want to do that in an area of interest. So in this case, yes, I mean, blowing up, or rather planting a bomb, or letting a bomb go off in the middle, or in the front of the central police station. I think, yes, that is a big statement right there. There's a big message in there, trying to show you that a bomb can find its way all the way to your headquarters. Or actually, this is not the police headquarters, but yet CPS was regarded as such just a few years ago, until it was moved, I think, to Naguru. So yes, there is intention there, and of course there's an area of interest, and we are yet to hear the message that was supposed to send. So of course, after that going off, investigations begin, and in hardly 24 hours after that, we know the person who blew themselves up, and their accomplices, and who they belong to. So, which is, of course, I think we've had this over and over again, which is the Allied Democratic Forces, that is the ADF rebels, who are regarded as the Islamic extremist group, operating around the area of East Africa. So that is what we know so far. But the question as to whether people are going to believe what the government's position is as far as alleging that ADF is responsible for these attacks, that is still something that is we're yet to get to the bottom of. So yes, people have died in this case, and anyone could have imagined that if you're a good tourist, probably you're going to look for a high traffic area, like the taxi park isn't very far close from where you are. But I guess the terrorist wasn't trying to take out maybe as many innocent citizens, or law-abiding people out there, or people minding their business. He intended to go to the police station to make the statement right there, because yes, we've had a history with the police whereby the police tends to be a little more aggressive or violent than the people it's trying to put in line. So yes, could this be someone who is aggravated by the police, by police brutality, and is trying to make a statement that we can also get back to you, and with a bigger force which you can't control and reckon with? Is that the statement here? That we're yet to establish. Those are all theories or lines of investigation that our investigators can help us answer, and just to reassure the public that this is not something to worry about. This is something we are looking into to ascertain whether the attack came from a citizen, or an individual who is trying to just get back to the police, because that was his target audience. And then maybe the other one would be something that we're missing out here, that probably should come out first, is how did the bomb get to where it is? Because bombs are not something that anyone can just put together, anyhow, and especially a bomb that is as sophisticated as that probably has a detonator somewhere. Maybe whoever has the bomb has the detonator in there. Those are all, that is all high-tech gear that is not exactly available to most citizens. I think, especially in Africa, and also in Uganda, most of our citizens do not have access to arms, firearms, ammunition, bombs, and all that. It's quite a different case, down here in the US, where you can walk into a shop and pick a gun. you could go and buy things that could easily get you a bomb. Not that those don't exist on the market there. I think they do. But yes, I'm just trying to show you that it might be easier to assemble such things in environments where citizens are allowed access to guns and ammunition in a way. But in Uganda, if this terrorist attack was able to come up and put that device together, where did they get the equipment? And who has the equipment? We are monitoring how things get in and get out. And as you can see on the screen, we have a number of some statistics out there as to how many people have actually been killed in terrorist attacks over the last. I think these are statistics for 2018 or 2019. It's over 20,000 people. Those are very many people. And Iraq, of those attacks, is only accounting for 765. And I think most of attacks have actually happened in Afghanistan, where, of course, the US has had a more global presence to try to suppress any cells that might be existing that are housing terrorists, because I think those were the breeding grounds for terrorism and grooming extremists who are able to go into other areas of the world and perform these acts. And on that note, you ask yourself, did the claimed gentleman who, not actually a gentleman, the deceased suicide bomber, does he have any connections to maybe the cells in Afghanistan or Iraq where, all these activities are on their highest peak per se? Well, that is a little hard to ascertain at this point. But as I think if you're to look at the global statistics of terrorism, they've been all over the place. But yes, they're high. There's still so many terrorist attacks happening out there. The problem with these terrorist attacks, like I had started to explain before, is how do you distinguish between, like Mr. Chibi was just saying, an act of war? It is war. It is sort of a certain group, one group getting back to the other group that, yes, you are in power or you are running things, but we don't want the way you're running them. And this is just inevitable if you have states or countries like the way they are set up today. If those in government are suppressing certain groups or certain, certain groups within the society they are leading, that group is not going to be so happy. They're going to try to be like, no, we could get into power as well and try to control things or apply some kind of better management or, some kind of justice system, which has always been the revolving kind of door with democracies, one regime getting in and another one coming out. So that is inevitable. And again, if you look at where, how much terrorism impacts the world, the figures are actually staggering. It's that big. Tourism is costing us that much, 26 billion. That's not a small figure. Some nations don't even make up for that money, and that's how much tourism impacts world economics per se. So, as you can see, this is a serious issue globally that I think if it is starting to manifest in a place like Uganda, yes, it should be taken seriously. If indeed it is terrorism, what I am, I am a little hesitant to accept is how fast sometimes the investigations go, and there is no really any report, but all of a sudden you have the names, you have where they stay, you have leads, and then you're chasing other people who are actually, who have had contact with, I don't know, maybe some of the suicide bombers or whoever. It's sort of hard to believe that an investigation can take just 24 hours for an operation that is that sophisticated, and then you have the names and which cells they belong to. It has been reiterated by, I think, some members of parliament, how quick sometimes these investigations go, and then that is it. If you're so quick on concluding, you might make certain mistakes. If you're to look at what has happened globally when it comes to terrorism, for the case like the United States, I think the biggest terrorism was 9/11. Terrorist attack was 9/11 when the World Trade Center buildings were demolished. And yes, there was a commission instituted. They did their due diligence, investigated, and then they gave us a background of how, it came to that day. And they started all the way from the 70s to how Osama bin Laden gets into training, he gets into, he declares war. It's all documented. There's a timeline in there. And at least it is more believable that someone is trying to make some effort to ascertain how this terror attack eventually manifests itself. They're trying to get every other, element or factor that could have led to build up to that day. Especially, they do not make mistakes on how they're going to, approach or rather counter terrorism in a way. And of course, people did sabotage that report to an extent, and they're like, some of the science didn't add up because the way the buildings came up, it was like a controlled demolition. Those are other theories, which of course were debunked by the government. But at least there's some effort done and there's time put in to, build up a case like that. Now, for the case of Uganda, I think we just need to do a little more and not just conclude in 24 hours without any report. If we knew these people prior, why didn't we even get them before, they hit the streets that day
Lawrence,
with,
can you
the
hold it
bomb
from
they had?
there for a moment?
So I beg to submit to that point.
Yes, thank you very much, Lawrence. Let me bring in Honorable. Honorable, I think now you hear us properly. Yeah. Yes, we can hear you now. Yes, Honorable, we can hear you now. I think you've been hearing what we've been trying to analyze here, and it seems like everybody seems to be very, very really thinking that possibly there is something fishy which is going on. The will of the government and the ability of the government to, catch up with this horror, and actually the will and the ability is also becoming another problem. And also, when you look at what people are talking about here, it seems like the government takes so much that fast, announcement. We have a connection. These people have a connection with ADF and all that stuff. Let's see what you have in your head. Honorable. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Juko, and our listeners, wherever you are, in the studio. I had out to Uganda because when these bombings happen to the victims, they scare the whole country. They put the economy to jeopardy. They put tourism jeopardy. Now people fear to travel to Uganda.
Honorable, I'm gonna get you on phone now.
Like
Let me get you on
has
phone.
just put it. The magnitude of the bombings, how the picture that was making rounds on social media, how it all happened. To me, I will say this terrorist, if he was, we have all along been watching this person. And when the person has done something bad, if they have done it anyway, then they will tell you this person who have been watching him for a long time, this person has for a long time been fighting government and has been wanting to kill people. Now we have caught him. But now in the recent circumstance of the bombings, I really wonder whether government is telling us the truth to say they have known the person, the man who blasted himself, a man whom they had no prior knowledge of, a man who died instantly, and they come out to say he's so and so from this and this area. To me, I still feel something is amiss. I watched the video myself, but I couldn't figure out the human being behind the bombing, the one who was carrying the bag. So I still feel what government is telling us, unless if they had prior knowledge of this person who is coming with a bomb, And remember, the person was strategic in the places where he went. On that day, there is a bomb blast that occurred on Parliamentary Avenue near the legislative arm of government. It goes to the Central Police Station, where there is also Uganda Road Court, by the way. So to me, I will say in this bombing, the three arms of government were affected: the judiciary, the executive, and parliament. The bomb blast that happened at Parliamentary Avenue, the one that happens at police, which is next to the Uganda Road Court, which is the judiciary, and I will say the person had a target. The person could have, if he was interested in just killing civilians, would have gone, for example, maybe in the arcades or in the Chikubo or in the bus park, but he specifically targeted a particular area. The way government comes out to distance itself from the matter is what remains a question. First, it takes us back to the statements that were said by Enanga when the British gave alerts and said, our citizens, our diplomats, please take care. And Enanga said, we are in charge of the whole situation. Those should not scare us. And the bombs started blastering at Komamboga, the buses, and now it comes directly to the police station. I still recall what happened in Kasese in November still, 2016 and 2017. My own government killed its own people in a palace in broad daylight. So to me, I can't distance this matter from the same government. Sometimes such a things happen when government departments are in collusion. You will find another arm of government, and most especially the security, they start fighting for resources and they say, okay, let's see who is who. And then I come back to the saying which goes that when two elephants make love, the grass suffers. But I can also tell you that when they are fighting, the grass also suffers. It is the other way around, that when they fight, the grass suffers. But also when they are making love, I can tell you, the same grass will still suffer. So to us, the Ugandans, we are the victims. I can say we are victims of our own government, which is failing to take care of the citizens. We are victims of a government that is irresponsible. The fact that they don't hold people accountable, the fact that people can kill with impunity, they will do it again and again. And I hate the issue of distancing themselves from it and trying to look out for the real culprits and balkanize the Muslims. I hate it because I know that we have bad Christians. We also have bad Muslims. The Jim Muwezis, when they were killing people here, they were not Muslims. So when they run away from the reality, the fact that they are failing to provide security for Ugandans, the fact that they are not taking precautionary measures to ensure that citizens are protected, because that is the biggest job of the security anyway, UPDF and the police, they are failing to do the minimum. A bomb blast happens at a police station where we expect that we are supposed to receive protection from. So the terrorists show us that, stop believing in the police. They have no power to control any attack from happening. They will not defend you even if it meant helping you. So in a way, we are helpless as a country. But I also want to take it back to the situation in the country. After the lockdown, you will realize that many people have lost jobs. They are in a state of hopelessness. They don't know whether they will get back to their jobs. They have nowhere to go to. They have nothing to eat. I can tell you, people are ready to do anything because they don't have hope in anything. They don't have hope. They know their government has not protected them. Their government has not cared for them at a time when they needed their government most. And therefore, if we have hopeless citizens who don't see any sense and any value in having a government, they are capable of doing what happened. But I also say my government should ensure that citizens are protected, that Ugandans can believe that they have a government that cares. The bombings of 2010 July are still fresh in our minds. The ones that happened at Rugby are still very fresh in our minds. To us, the people of Kasese, the killings that were meted upon the people by our own government are still very fresh in our mind. This is 5 years. Nobody has been held accountable. People who were killed have not had any redress. The ones who are in prison have never had any redress. Now, this one also happens. The situation we are in as a country needs a lot to be desired. And therefore, I want to call upon my security officers. I think you also need protection. The time has come for Ugandans to say, I think enough is enough. If we were banking on government to protect us, they are equally helpless. If we are thinking the defense of the country relies entirely in the hands of the UPDF, I think we are deceived. Because what is happening, if they can blast bombs around Parliament, they blast bombs at the police station, then there is no way it cannot happen. So for the citizens of Uganda, I think our security is entirely in our hands. This tells us our government ceased to be a government that cares about its citizens. And I can tell you President Museveni's government is capable of doing anything to stay in power. So if some of us have doubts that the government has a hand in this, well, it is my own opinion that my government should be able to give me an accountability of why citizens should die and the situation continues as it is. My government should be able to tell me that when I wake up from my bed and I go to the town, I will come back healthy and normal. But otherwise, it is so unfortunate, it is so sad, and it is true. Nobody can tell you the correct situation of what happened and what they expect, how they think they will take care of Ugandans. While the president was addressing the nation yesterday, they still want to brush it off. Talk about these people as cowards. Man, it's not a cowardly act to just go knowing you are going to die. It's only the brave that can do that. You only have to tap into these men and women who want to kill themselves with all that energy and see how you put it to proper use. We use it productively, other than looking at them as cowards, brush them off as Muslims, and then the real culprits bask in the sun and say, yes, it is the Muslims. When all the Muslim fraternity is over, they will come for the Catholics. And they say it is the Catholics. When the Catholics are done, they will come for the Anglicans and say, you know, it is the Anglicans. Today, they are bumping it on the Muslims and possibly ADF. And yet they have been telling us, ADF, we swept it. ADF, we swept it. Now ADF can come in the city center of Kampala. We used to hear it in Central African Republic. We used to hear it in Democratic Republic of Congo. Now it is in the city center of Kampala. That sends signals to our government that if they don't stop using security as a reason to hang on power, they are likely to see even worse scenarios than what we have seen. Because I know President Museveni uses security to hang on power, but I think his own security is letting him down, or his own forces are letting him down to let these unfortunate incidences happen unnoticed. We would only say, yes, you are on top of the game if such incidences were not happening. So to us as a people, we feel betrayed, we feel let down, and we believe that the government should have done much more to protect the citizens. And we continue to believe that NSN government should not be arrogant to handle matters of security. The arrogance in which President Museveni handles this situation of the terrorists does not give us hope that we are yet to see a light at the end of the tunnel. It creates more confusion because you see now the sounds that are coming from the police, the communication coming from the army, and then the communication coming from the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. All the communications are scattered, are not coordinated. They leave you at a loss as a citizen who expects that you have a government that should take care of you. We may not take them off the hook because we know that they are known for those bombs. They used them when they were coming, and they would say is the Obote government that is doing it, and Ugandans would believe. So if we can see the same, and they are referring to terrorists and Muslims, well, I know some Ugandans will believe, but me, I would take it with a pinch of salt, because I know that the government that is supposed to protect the citizens must protect it under all circumstances. And I want to say, let's stop the blame game of saying the terrorists, and we begin naming them Muhammadi, we begin naming them Bin Isa, Wahu. These are people who are the situation. I can tell you, a hungry man is an angry one. Let's fix the economics of our country. Let's fix the economic situation in our country. Let's see a peaceful transfer of power from one person to another, and then we see how these bombings can continue happening. But where people are about to lose hope, they are bound to do anything. So, Dr. Juko, the happenings in Kampala, to me, I will not take them away from my government, because my government is supposed to protect the citizens. I will not take it away from them because I saw my government killing people towards elections. I saw my government killing innocent citizens in Kasese on the 26th and 27th of November, 2016. So they are capable of doing anything. Me, I can't take it away from my government. Me as Winnie, in my personal capacity as Winnie Kiza, former member of parliament from Kasese, who witnessed these killings. So I really sympathize with the persons who got affected, most especially the officers who were on duty, that they meet these unfortunate situations at the place of duty, the families of the women and men who have died under these unfortunate incidents, that may their souls rest in peace, but also with a call to my government, keep our country safe. Keep our country safe for citizens to transact their businesses, to have jobs, to feed their families, and be at peace with themselves before we begin blaming Muslims and fanatics and terrorists.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Let's hold it from there, Honorable. My producer, I want some, let us hear something from the producer.
Abatujju bano bwe beekubye ne bajja obutambulizo byo ne bisigalamu
balinga bamawulire ba NBS babeera ne kaadi zino ku kifuba.
Abatujju bano bazze ne betta
kamera ziraze nga beetulisa
anti ngamba ne tubamanya n'amanya abiri ewulidde ne tubamanya n'amanya abiri oba tubadde tubamanyi ebbanga lyonna bazze batya mu ggwanga ne batuuka n'okutta abantu baffe nga tubamanyi era ne tusanga omunamuna ono ya budalo no bannange
kugululula kuno
kugulu kuno kwa kasimu ne bannange
sokolera nambozi n'omukuba essasi oluvannyuma nga amaze okukubulira ebingi n'afa okirabya ku sitole
abatujju bano bo we
banaakozesa okusekeetera gavumenti ya Idi Amin. Yalinamu Abbas Kibazo, yalinamu Sheikh Zubair Bakari, yalinamu Haji Kibuye, yalinamu Seguya n'abalala. Teyakoma ku ekyo, ye kennyini n'afuuka musiraamu n'afuuka Kasimu. Mwami Mama Mbabazi w'ekitiibwa Museveni yafuuka Kasimu. Amama Mbabazi bamutuuma Ahmad, ne batandika okukola omulimu gwabwe ogw'okutabulatabula gavumenti n'okubuzaawo ebyetaago eby'embeera eza bulijjo, sukaali, ddagala, sabuuni n'ebirala. Nga buli ekigwawo be bavumaganyizibwa. Nga ne babakutte babakutte Kasimu abeera musiraamu. Yateekawo abakulisitaayo n'abakulisitu nga bali mu maliba g'abasiraamu. mutowe George akandwanaho n'okusisawo yali bamwita Salimu Salim.
Omuyisani
George akandwanaho
ye George
nakati bamwita Salimu Salim. Ebyo bannayuganda tebabibuuza nti abantu abeeta amanya g'abasiraamu bo tebasobola kukola bikolobero ne bavumaganya obusiraamu. N'ateekawo Shefaali, n'ateekawo Shabani Bantaliza. Oyo Shabani akyaliwo n'olwaleero era erinnya bamuyita Shabani. N'amanya si musiraamu Shabani Bantaliza. N'amanya amalala mangi. Kati obusiraamu buvumaganyizibwa mu nkola eŋŋenderere. Mwami Museveni obukyayi bw'alina ku busiraamu yadduka mu Uganda ng'Amini yakafuga ennaku 2 n'agenda ebweru nga tamaze namugezesaako.
Go ahead.
Yes, I think let me bring in Mr. Chendo. Are you there? I think you have heard what these people are saying. It seems like, and you have heard what Honorable Winnie has said. And Lawrence was very clear when he said that there are a lot of questions, as you mentioned as well. And it seems like those questions are not answered. And here comes a situation about the Muslims. The Muslims seem to be always the witch hunted when it comes to this terrorist attack. Would you, as a Muslim, would you indulge in that as well?
No, I thank you once again. Unfortunately, I missed out Honorable Winnie, and yet it looks like she had quite a lot being informed as a former MP. I really should have missed. However, I want to say on the onset that Museveni's remarks over Muslims has always been constantly an outburst of profanities towards Muslims. In Uganda, I want to say that the Muslim as a population has always been subdued right from colonialism. Muslims were marginalized. Muslims were denied leadership. Muslims never received land like the Christians. We had limited education. In fact, the post-Amin era, Muslims were villains. And when some Muslims, yet actually Muslims participated, some Muslims like Kirunda Kibejija and the Aruna Chibuyes of Chanjo has said, they all participated in the war against Amin, and yet, and yet, Muslims have always been looked at as a group of subhumans in one way or the other. Now, when Museveni came in, I remember around 1979, during that time, it is alleged people were killed around Mbarara Nyamitanga. And I think during that time when we had a commission of inquiry, some people are actually saying that he instigated the killing of some Muslims in Nyamitanga. But like Chanjo has said, it is interesting that Museveni has been a user of Muslims. He actually had help from Muslims like Gaddafi. He had to put up with names which he actually never liked because he wanted something amongst the Muslims. So actually, even when you look at his service towards Muslims, look at how he has deliberately made it impossible for Muslims to have a true leadership. Actually, you'll find the president siding with the old Kampala, at the same time siding with the Chibuli, actually interested in the clash. One time, there was occasion at Kololo, his minister calls the two muftis and he sets them to fight before the congregation. So, in this respect, I want to think Museveni has not been meaning well for Muslims. Now, it is very, very interesting that every time anything happens, actually for me, I know whenever something happens, I want, when I look at the news, I know at least a Muslim's name should be included. But this has been very rooted actually in our body politic. Sometimes in 1979, an exilee in our village came back from Kenya. And when he came back, well, how many Muslims did you kill? How many did you kill any Muslims from the next village? So Muslims have always had that problem. Reason I want to think, Islam is actually a religion that has been feared, and it has been fought not only by Museveni, but the world over. Americans are fighting Muslims, and actually, when at the end of the day, Muslims are put in this light that they are terrorists, I really think it is very, very deliberate. In a nutshell, I expect even worse for Muslims. And the best thing I want to say, as far as Muslims are concerned, is actually one, to make sure they should not congregate where their lives may be actually jeopardized. In fact, when you look at what Numbers was saying, it is quite interesting that, well, we have suicide bombers, and their identifications are actually very handy, not missing. Only that, again, they are handy and they are for Muslims. I really don't think Muslims are such hopeless to be every time that they are the very people who should be fighting. I want to think this is more than the Muslims. I want to think, Doctor, that there is a question, a very big question people have not asked themselves. What is the political stand in Uganda? How is the politics in Uganda? Actually, we are evading that question because there can never be a war without a reason. If at all the politics is the problem, is it actually the Muslims who should be fighting for this politics? Well, they could be part of it. But I don't think that we can have a scenario where we can have Muslims fighting for the politics of this country alone. I really don't think. Muslims are just used or misplaced in as far as I see. That's what I can have for right now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chendo. Maurice, there seems to be a correlation between Ugandan situation and Kenyan situation, Maurice. In many occasions, our countries have porous borders. Like Kenya, I know, has a porous border with Somalia, and Uganda has a very porous border with Congo and Rwanda. In this regard, do you see any correlation? Are Muslims also witch-hunted in Kenya? And if they are, what do you think? Is it the right kind of witch hunt, or what's your take?
So, first of all, what I like to say is that I totally agree with what Honorable Winnie said. I totally agree with her sentiments, and it is sad that we have a government in place, and you see lives getting lost, like the incident that happened in 2010, where 74 people were killed when viewing the World Cup. That was very unfortunate, and we still have incidences happening, and the government is in place. So I think the first job of any government that is in place is to protect its citizens. And if that government has failed to protect the citizens, and it's not supposed to be in place. So what I'm saying is that the security and accountability of all that is happening depends on its citizens. So the correlation between what is happening in Uganda, Sudan, perhaps Kenya, we are all neighbors, and each and every all these things, when they happen, they spill over. They spill over. The effects and everything, the fear, the chaos. But unfortunately, the leaders that we put in place always use this chaos to stay in power, just like Honorable Wynne said, which is very unfortunate. If you want to stay in power in a very democratic way, protecting citizens, giving them whatever they want, they need, and most importantly, protecting their lives. So there's a lot of relations, because, like I said before, what is happening with the jihadists, or the extremists, is that the rivalry between them is now spilling over to East Africa, and our security personnel needs to be in a high alert. If we get this the intelligence information from our caring big brothers like the UK and the US, let us take care of accountability. But what the thing happened in Uganda, that is not really what we think about terrorism. That had to be something to be done. That was an inside job, because how would you know names of a person who had just blown himself or herself? Were you tracing the person? Did you know that person? These are some of the questions that we really fail to understand. How did you know? This is somebody who has blown himself or herself, did not leave any writing behind, and yet the government has the full names of the person. So it calls for more questions than answers that what we are getting on the ground. So bottom line, the security systems, people need just to be very vigilant, because the times are coming. Like if you look at the global terrorism index, says like the gravity of the Islamic State groups is moving away from the Middle East back to Africa. And this one calls for attention for our governments. Are they putting in place measures that will really help protect the citizens? Because people cannot thrive in chaotic environment. Business cannot thrive in chaotic environment. People cannot be living in fear, yet they have a government that they voted in place to protect them. There's a need to change that. And there's a need for us to start acting and putting up political leaders, rather the leadership, to account for whatever thing is happening. I think it is time for citizens to take up these measures, to start asking difficult questions on our security agencies and the leadership of our countries, so that we can try as much as possible to be safe. Because if we do not ask these pertinent questions, all these things will keep on going. Whatever thing happened in 2010 happened, and 74 people were killed. I feel sorry for the loss of the lives, the families that were affected. Hit again. And these things keep on coming, and we keep quiet. The government keeps on brushing them aside, and we keep on quiet. And we cannot continue like this. We need to say no. We need to put a stop on it, and we need to hold our governments accountable, and those people that are in charge with the security agencies. That's all I have to say.
Yes, Maurice, it seems like the big brother Museveni around East Africa seems to have galvanized all the East African countries. And right now, it's Kenya, which is missing into the basket. And actually, let me have, before you go away, let me have this video. Let's have this
Uganda.
video first.
Sure, and you are the deputy president, and you want to become the president of Kenya. Now we have seen your true colors. All these things you are talking about, bottom up, bottom down, bottom chini, bottom katikati, is lies. So please, the Daktari William Ruto, come clean on your relationship with NRM. This is that's a party that has kept someone in the presidency for 3 decades. So are you planning to stay also for 3 decades as a president in Kenya when you win? Thank you so much. Honorable Mbadi, Chairman. No, you will say that.
Uganda Development Agenda. Thank you. I think Junet has said it all, but let me just maybe put into perspective 2 issues. Ruto's dalliance relationship, near marriage with Yoweri Museveni has nothing to do with winning 2022 elections. It has all to do with disrupting the peace in this country immediately after 2022 elections. Every right-thinking person knows that NRM has never won any competitive democratic election. Museveni has never won any democratic election. What Museveni knows is how to destabilize, how to grab power by force. And so Ruto cannot claim to go to Uganda to learn on issues of how to win elections. He's going to Uganda. We very well know that he has already given up. He knows he's not going to win presidency, and therefore he's going to learn tendencies on how to disrupt to disrupt peace in this country after 2022 election. Yoweri Museveni, the president of Uganda, should respect this country and know that we are not interested in importing his dictatorial tendencies that he has been exhibiting in Uganda. This is a democratic nation, a country that is guided by the rule of law, and that which has been nurtured for a very long time. I want to conclude by saying that what Junet has said makes a lot of sense. If you are the deputy president of a country, how on earth would you claim to be taking investors to another nation, to another state? That is completely a sign of lack of patriotism for the nation. And by the way, let me put it also very in perspective, that this dalliance with Yoweri Museveni is not a coincidence. Ruto started by radicalizing our youths in this country. He has been on a mission to radicalize youths in this country, incite them by creating class society, so that when he loses elections, he finds people who are vulnerable to be used the same way Museveni used those who were desperate in Uganda that time to topple a government that was in place and to lead forever and to lead for life. And so what should come out of this press conference, as Junet put it, we are not bothered with whether Ruto was cleared or not. We are bothered with his relationship with Uganda, and we are bothered with what he's going to do in Uganda to destabilize. We are interested in the peace of this country. And as leaders of this country, we don't want any sign of a leader who is demonstrating signs of causing the instability in this country. We all know what we have seen previously, where people are incited to evict others from their own farms and killing people. We don't want to see that after 2022. And we are not going to allow an individual, even if you are the deputy president of the nation, to do it. Thank you.
Any question? We don't want guerrilla wars in Kenya. Yes. We don't want guerrilla wars.
I think, Maurice, you've heard what the members of parliament we are talking about, or we call them senators. It seems like Dr. Ruto is in bed with President Museveni, and they are planning a lot of stuff down there. And people seem to be very, very, concerned. Even Ugandans seem to be very concerned. What's your take on that?
That's an interesting clip, and I must say, like people always say, like, show me your friends, and I'll show you who you are. So if Kenya's deputy president is Yoweri Museveni's friend, then I don't think Kenyans are really ready for him, because if he's really darling with him and learning tactics on how to stay in power, how to grab power, then I don't think Kenyans are ready for that kind of scenario, because what we need, Kenya is a very is a democratic country. We go to the ballot, we cast our votes, and we pick our winner. We don't suppress people. We don't cause chaos or commotions in order to stay in power. So Uganda is our neighboring friend, and we are good people. We do business together, we do a lot of things. But again, what makes everything, again, go wrong is about leadership. And that's why I keep on saying, like, the power still stays in our hands. Whatever thing we do with it, it's still ours. So if our deputy president is going to learn tactics from Yoweri Kaguta Museveni on how he has stayed in the power for that long through chaos and everything, and that's why we are able even to connect the bombings to the leadership of Uganda, because you cannot tell me, like, you have security agencies who are always alert 24/7, that such thing happen. Once bitten, twice shy. What happened in 2010 should not happen in 2021. And that is where we say, like, the leadership of Museveni has failed. If you cannot protect your citizens, then what the hell are you doing in power? The people who are paying your salaries, are dying, are being killed outside there in the name of terrorism, which I put in quote. So we are not ready for such scenarios. So if that is what is happening on the ground, then I feel sorry. Then we need to, we Kenyans, we are heading to elections next year. The deputy president is running to be the president of the Republic of Kenya. And if that is what he want to do, I don't think the people are going to be ready for it, because we are not ready for a Museveni era like in Kenya. We want to respect our constitution. People will stay in power for only 10 years and go home, not a lifetime presidency. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure that you've put in your effort and try to dig deep. Let me bring in Lawrence. Lawrence, it seems like you've heard what Honorable has said and what Mr. Chendo has said. In Uganda, things look very awkward and mythical. That whenever Ugandans complain, they don't see any result when it comes to international communities. And yet, when you look at the situation that we have, it would be evident that all stakeholders would be now very concerned. But because he's a very, he's very cunning and he plays a lot of games, everybody seems to understand that he's the man to deal with. What is your take about that, Lawrence?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jiko, once again. And fellow panelists, thank you for making very wonderful submissions on this very critical point of, terrorism per se. Now, like I shared before, yes, the stakes are so high when it comes to terrorism today. It is, like we said, it has a very big financial impact out there. And even those who are participating in terrorism are expecting some reward, because logically, people are only going to participate in activities that they hope to benefit some form of reward from, whether economic or social capital or leadership. Be what it is, whatever aims those groups are hoping to achieve or obtain from these acts. And yes, for the case of terrorism specifically, it's usually just to get that political capital that those groups are missing out because of various other factors. I think terrorism is kind of changing, like I think all the fellow panelists have said. I think it all started off from from Al-Qaeda, it went into Al-Shabaab, now it is ISIS. And something interesting about that is that, yes, the more it changes, I think the more it is also drifting from the core area, which was in the Middle East, and it's draining so much into, or rather getting so much into African countries per se. Case in point, when you look at the global statistics for terrorism around Africa, you can see that I think Nigeria is leading us in this. It is having the highest level of terrorist attacks on the land. That is over the last decade or so. And of course, you're seeing Somalia, Libya, and all these other groups coming down there. But Uganda, per se, in the last decade or so, it has only had 66 events that they are classifying as terror attacks. I think these are carefully selected by the government, of course, itself. And I think it's the same case for Nigeria itself. These are labeled terrorist attacks. But please put in mind, like Mr. Chin just said initially, that this is a war. So these attacks that are classified as terror attacks, some of them are actually legitimate opposition kind of pressures or strategies to unseat these regimes or governments that are not putting forward or supporting the people's will. Now, for the case of Uganda, yes, we'll that is just to look at events that have happened, for the last 10 years. But we could go back, like we discussed earlier, that from 19, or rather just after independence, when you look at what happened in 1966 with the Kabaka crisis, that was actually a terror attack, because at that point the king was the president. It doesn't matter whether you disagreed with him, whether Obote disagreed, with legitimate issues or so, but he was the president. And you saw what happened. We all know what happened during that at the time. It was just a massacre. For part of the forces comes in and then just kills everyone who is around the president, and then you are going to claim that that was liberation at that point. Well, that curse, I would call it a curse, because it looks like we've never turned a leaf from that. It has followed us all the way up to now. It comes to 1971, it's the same thing. Amin takes over just like that. I think for Amin, he was a little lucky that it was almost a bloodless coup. There's not so many reports that so many people were killed when Obote was getting exiled in 1971. Well, but then that happened. And then fast forward 1979, same thing. It's all these groups that have actually filled the vacuums of power in Uganda. In today's definition of terrorism, they are terrorists. And I think that goes back to, I don't know whether we played that video yet of Honorable Eliasu Kwago, or rather, yes, the mayor trying to assure Jim Muwezi that they were also terrorists in 1986 or before 1986 when they were in the bush. And that is so true. Again, looking at what definition is, yes, they were also an extremist group and they were violent. Well, we could accuse the government at that point that it was, the one killing its citizens, but that's a debate for another day. I think all sides are to blame in that, when that happened. When you move forward to what Horiza was just explaining earlier with what happened in Kasese, that too is unimaginable that it could happen today. For me, when I looked at the events as they transpired that day, I just saw the reenactment of the 1966 crisis in modern day. And I can see how other parts of the country probably, again, even then, reacted when this was happening, because they all seem to be detached and they're like, no, that is just the Resolute leadership, and it is trying to oppose the government. I think they probably deserve what they were getting at that point, but we all saw how that happened. These people just had spears, machetes, and all that, and they had, of course, certain claims and certain reasons or political statements to make at that point. And being Africans, I think we should never forget our roots, that we're more so cultural people, or kingdom kind of, or rather a monarchical kind of inclined before we are democratic. And these groups are all recognized as, as bridging kind of entities in society that help to keep people together, and they do assist government in its pursuit to extend leadership and cover the entire terrain. But at that point, we also happen. The government steps in, kills that many people, and then it's considered a terrorist. That these were actually terrorists. But I wonder how they were terrorists when they were in their area, and whatever they were trying to advocate or trying to protect, or whatever statements they were making, were for their people. These were not necessarily people who had moved to another kingdom, like the way it used to be, that maybe they had come to attack, maybe, I don't know which neighboring areas they are, to say kingdoms that they could be warring with. There was none in that regard. But again, it was claimed as terrorism. And this is exactly the dilemma that comes in when you look at terrorism today. It kind of eliminates organized society, say. And I like the way Honorable put it, that yes, right now it is the Muslims who are to blame or put into the target, and everything seems to be thrown their way, that, it's always Muslims for some sort. And they always never have the best intentions, per se, for everyone else. But again, what happens when the Muslims are done? Well, who are they going to come to next? And I like the way he said, it's the Catholics. I don't know. The Catholics have had, at least a better track record, per se, in not being violent, but who knows who will come in next. If we managed, or rather the state managed, to radicalize an organized people, or rather a kingdom like the Resolute, I think they could take it to any other level, per se. So looking at that, we can see the kind of challenges that we are faced with as Ugandans or citizens of any African nation per se in terms of terrorism. If you look at the recent terrorist kind of report by country that was done by the State Department here on terrorism globally, Uganda, yes, we're part of the East and Southern, I think, African money laundering group. And these groups are some of the groups that usually funnel, acts of money laundering is usually the way terrorist groups are able to finance, because they're not going to get their money through the normal banking system or your mobile money systems that you're having there. They have to craft some kind of schemes to see that we are, they're able to get the funds through, because you're not going to convince anyone to wear a bomb, go blow up himself when there's no reward. I think these terrorist terrorists are usually given some kind of financial reward on that regard. We have, of course, I think back in 2019, Tehran put aside almost $700 million. That's in 2019, $700 million. That's a lot of money just to fund terrorist activities around the world. This is, again, according to the terrorism report of 2019. You see, there's big money in there. And if we can get it in areas like, like in our region where people are grappling with all sorts of, social issues, which is, poverty, all this sectarianism, whatever we're dealing with within our society. I think this is a safe haven for, terrorist activities or terrorist money. That's the best place to plant all these elements and recruit people. And it is unfortunate that that is how it is playing out, that terrorism has shifted to us in that manner. But what is the government doing, or what does the government have to, how is it approaching terrorism today? I think there's been so many regional efforts within the East African region, as in regards to the government of Uganda participating, I think, in Somalia with AMISOM, and I think we have the largest troops in there. But we should note that as we are, as a country, are making those sacrifices, which I don't know whether other citizens approved of us, going into Somalia to do what we're doing there. That's a debate again for another day. But if they committed troops there and they're supposed to keep the whole, region, kind of stable, I think at first we should first make sure that our people are also, at peace for starters before we go to protect other nations. And I think that's why the other nations in the area were, kind of retracted their forces. For us, getting into Somalia, and then we are, I think, trying to suppress all these extremist groups, or rather maintain peace there. Again, let's not forget that that isn't perceived so well by the other group. You expect some retaliation. You're dressed in combat, you're carrying a gun, you're threatening the other group. They have to get back to you. And if they can't face you at the same level, on the same battlefield, they're going to get into strategies like you're having right now, which is terrorism per se. I think back in the day, in the 80s, I think those were the so-called guerrilla attacks by then. Today, all that has metamorphosed into terrorism today. So this is expected. Again, I think Uganda has also been in the DRC for a while. Same thing, you went to the DRC, you're carrying arms, you're fighting the other group. Expect some kind of retaliation at some point. At least any mature person should expect an attack from an opponent at some point if you, trying to attack. It is only expected that we are going to get this backlash, just gauging by the events that have happened over the last 10 or even 20 years. The way Uganda has carried itself in the region. I mean, it's the same thing. I think we've also taken troops to the Sudan. We can as well expect a backlash if the other group is also not happy. So on that regard, when you look at all that, I think, yes, Uganda is red hot for terrorism. And I think that is why we need a very competent kind of system or leadership that is going to make sure that it considers this in their, their security strategy, because it is a real threat to the citizens of the country. So just by that, I think you do see that yes, these terrorist attacks happening in Uganda, they are not exactly surprise attacks per se. We expect them, or at least the government does. Maybe other ordinary citizens don't, but we should expect them just by the way we've carried ourselves, over the last 10 or so years in the region. I think what I wanted to conclude with, when you look at the ADF has been here probably for the last probably 20 years or more. And yes, we've had some claims that before with the bombs that used to happen in the 90s or so. If we've had a history with ADF attacks, coming in and out and all that. And I think they've ended up regrouping in DRC. At least that's the claim today, that in the DRC. But we've been in the DRC fighting. We fought all the way to Chisanga and all the other areas. I think if we were interested in getting the threats out of the way of who are threatening us, we should have just moved into areas where the ADF is and wiped them out, since we have such a formidable force. But that didn't seem to happen. And then ADF just keeps thriving at that. Of late, in the same report, we can see that ADF is now linked to ISIS by some sort of way in order to get funding for their activities. So as you can see now, ADF has, maybe upgraded now. It's gotten a stronger partner, because ISIS, I think, is really, big deal in as far as terrorism is. It's what is making the most headlines. So we should be really, we should take this very serious. Just throwing a bunch of profanities out there that these are pigs, these are what, I think it's not going to happen if you have a person, a contender on the other side who has access to a resource that is almost as big as your national security budget. That is a real threat. And if there is a way to actually resolve this conflict, I mean, what are the needs, or rather, what are the claims of the ADF? What do they want, per se? But today, ADF even isn't making so much sense, because it's not just attacking Uganda, it's so attacking in the Congo. So I failed to understand how a rebel group, which was local and supposed to, was only interested in political power, per se, in Uganda, now is carrying out attacks in neighboring countries. Then now that changes the whole flow. But maybe it's because they got funding from ISIS, so they are expanding their operations to an international kind of plane. So if you look at that, I would say that we probably need to go back to the drawing board and revise the strategy we have to approach terrorism. Well, I beg to submit on that note, Dr. Jacob.
Thank you very much for the submission. And let's have a quick 1 minute break, and then we come back. Thank you. Welcome back to the last segment of this show. With me in the studio, I have Honorable Winnie Chiza, I have Lawrence Semugoma, I have Maurice Otieno, and Mr. Chendo, discussing deep into the discussion that has prevailed in Uganda this week, where we had a lot of scary sceneries which were looking so nasty in front of the people and the Ugandan population at large. Let's come over. Let me bring in Honorable Winnie. Honorable Winnie, it seems like the government has failed to, acknowledge its responsibility of what really happened. Let's first have that voice, that sound. Let me first have that sound. Producer, can you give me that sound? 1 minute of Honorable.
That's a fact. You terrorized the people, you terrorized the Kampala, you terrorized the Ruwero. You were a terrorist, you can't deny that fact. So why were you not shot dead?
Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store to download the Afro mobile app.
Jim, who is here, was once a terrorist.
You were a terrorist.
No.
When you were in the bush, what were you?
Can you stop
I was
that?
fighting just cause and I was here in Luwero. I was not hiding.
You mean you didn't kill anybody?
I was not hiding.
Didn't you kill anyone?
Do you know the difference about a war, guerrilla war, and a terrorist?
Now you can imagine.
Do you
He was
know?
you were a terrorist. That's a fact. You terrorized the people, you terrorized the Kampala, you terrorized the Ruwero. You were a terrorist. You can't deny that fact. So why were you not shot dead? Jim.
I think, Honorable, you are here. The minister is being roasted. That is a terrorist. I mean, is there any difference between a terrorist and a rebel, or a rebel? I would say the guerrilla war rebel group.
You know, Dr. Juko, when the Jim Muhwezes were fighting in the jungles of Luwero, and actually even in the jungles of Rwenzori, a war which he calls a just war, even the terrorists, when they are going to attack, they will tell you they are doing a just war. The Muslim fundamentalists, when they go to attack, they are on a just war. So there will never be any spilling of blood that should be justified. When Museveni and his group started killing people, they were killing innocent civilians who had no power whatsoever to remove a government that was there then. And for me, what hurts me most is saying an election had gone bad. An election in which President Museveni did not participate as a presidential candidate. He was actually a parliamentary candidate where he lost to Kutesa. And he went to the bush to fight that Dr. Bote had rigged an election. An election that was rigged was for the DPs, not his UPM. He went to the bush to fight a system that is now heavily entrenched into the NRM regime. Vote rigging. That is why you even had the Kenyans saying, distance yourself, Ruto, from Museveni's regime, because we know that Museveni has never gone to power, has never won an election. He rigs, he manipulates, and it is the reason he went to power, what they call a just war. So why did they have to kill blood in the first place if they can't follow what their hearts told them at that time? So there is no difference between them and these ones who are blasting themselves. And to me, what really I fail to understand is at what stage shall we say President Museveni killed the people and acknowledges it and he says, I think I'm sorry. The people of Luwero, where he killed hundreds and thousands of people, are still in dire poverty. Luwero robbed a lot of our wealth to enable him fight and capture Kampala, are still in poverty. The only gift he gave them was to even kill the few people who were still remaining there. I want to thank Lawrence for his analysis. The analysis and those who don't have is a recipe for disaster. A Uganda that has been divided between ethnic communities is a recipe for disaster. A Uganda where we are now looking at our religions and honor them, and because we believe that is the only source of protection, is a recipe for disaster. We have been bundled in cocoons where we are fighting one another. You will fight a Mukonzo fighting a Munyankole. Munyankole can't speak well with an Acholi. Now the language is Gambano. If you don't know Runyankole, you will not pass by. You have to have a godfather somewhere where you are found on a roadblock and you can say, hello, Vanzo Gambeno, are receipts for bad people to and says, look here, you Vanyankore, I mean you actually, I will help you to wipe the Vanyankore who are sitting on you. Everybody will be more than glad to hold the gun. People will only talk about patriotism when it matters to them. They are eating, They leave you outside and then they say be patriotic while they are eating. And they think you should watch and be a patriot. At what time should I be a patriot? When I'm watching you eating, when I'm watching you kill my people, or when we are together confronting a situation or a problem as it has come. It is so sad that these Bushmen still feel they did not kill people and they are supposed to be held accountable. Some level of accountability needs to be accorded to Ugandans for the killings of the many people who were killed in Luweero, the killings of the many people who were killed in Kampala, now at the current Garden City, where they killed a lot of people, and even the Freedom Square there, the many people that were killed by President Museveni, where you go for an election and the people who are competing with you have been allowed to compete by law. You are calling them saboteurs, you are calling them terrorists, you say I will crush them. You are still using a language of crush. You are looking at a serious problem that is affecting your community. People are dying by bombs and you are saying these pigs have killed people. Oh my God. Trivializing very serious matters is one of the other issues that is going to finish our country. It is the arrogance that I talked about. Someone has killed 7 people on spot and you are saying this pig. So does it solve the situation? Does it help in any way? All the Ugandans need is to say, Ugandans, we apologize that we are not able to protect you. We are going on the drawing board and ensure that this does not happen again. That is why, to me, I still believe that my government will not go off the hook for these killings. We saw the people dying in Masaka. And what the Minister of Constitutional Affairs said, that, you know, those people never voted for NRM, so they have no leaders who can defend them. When you speak like that and you are a minister, then we just know you, the government, meted the killings upon the people so that you come up to say, you know, because you don't have leaders who are into NRM, that's why your people are dying. And it doesn't surprise me that immediately President Museveni says, I'm going to compensate the victims of the bombings. But you're not going to bring back those who are dead. Even if you compensated, yes, it's a good gesture, but that's also patronage. You are not using your own money, for heaven's sake. So let him first bring the Ugandans together so that we can talk about a united Uganda. We can talk about going to the north, and me as a person from the west and Democratic Republic of Congo, between the Nyamulenges and the Congolese. Majority of the Bakonzos, by the way, stay in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. I wanted to visit my relatives, but they told me, Winnie, they will look at you, they will think you are in Munyamulenge. So come, because the situation there was so tense that people were looking at the faces, they look at the noses, and they just know this one is an enemy. It is the same situation that we have in Kampala. Until we bring our house to order, until we do promotions genuinely, until we put people in the positions that they deserve using merit, we shall continue seeing these problems. And indeed, like Loris said, we have become warmongers. Where there is any confusion, Uganda will be present. But I also know that there is money that they get by going there. So we are more preoccupied with getting money at the expense of our citizens. And I can tell you, Dr. Juko, with all the other panelists, that a matter appeared in Parliament where our soldiers who were in Somalia were not being paid for some months. And yet we knew that money was coming for the activity. When we asked the Minister of Defense then, Dr. Crispus Chionga, he said we use the money to buy uniforms for the forces. As if there was no money for the uniform for the forces, and then you have to use their salaries. So even these people who are being brought from these missions, they are dumped here at the headquarters, they are never deployed, and they are there. Some of them are retired when they come from these missions, and they are helpless. So our governments in Africa, and most especially my country, Uganda, they need to rethink their security strategy. they need to first assess the damage they have caused to other countries. I can tell you, Ugandans, we are not a welcome guest in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo because they believe it's our forces that are killing people there. And they may not be telling lies because we have been seen there before. They have held us accountable for stealing gold and timber in Congo. Instead of defending people, we go there to loot. So even our high appetite to what does not belong to us is a recipe for disaster. We are a neighbor who is suspected for every wrongdoing by our neighbors. Combination of Lawrence and the submission of the other colleagues, that our security department needs to sit down and rethink the strategy they have to use. Everywhere we have gone, we have caused enemies. Well, we have made some few friends, but the enemies are more than the friends. And like Laura said, the enemies that we have are more rich than we are, to the extent that if they wanted to blow us in a single day, they would, because of their capacity to do it. I think we are only still lucky, I will say Uganda, we are lucky that our God is still alive and is still taking care of us. I now no longer want to believe that to have a security system that takes care of Ugandans. Ugandans are actually now in the hands of God. It is God who takes care of us, and once he gives up on us, we shall be finished. President Museveni can no longer pride himself of securing Ugandans. If women would be killed just in his courtyard in Entebbe, and he could not find anyone, schools are getting burnt every other day. Nobody has been arrested. Many people are being killed every other day. The Jambia holding Ugandans, I mean the Jambia holding people who killed people in a massacre. Nobody is arrested. Innocent citizens, again, the ones who become victims of these arrests, because nobody has been placed at the center of crime to see that really a case has been handled from the beginning to the end. All they can do is to patch up issues and say, you know, we shall put you there and hard for many years until you say, yes, I plead guilty. So Uganda, we are at a loss in terms of security. Our leadership has forced itself to the population for far too long. I think President Museveni has overstayed his welcome. He needs to go, and we see if another capable leader, a leader with new ideas, a leader with fresh strategies, can take up the leadership of Uganda, and we put our country in one piece so that we can move together as one nation, not in fragments of society. Our society has been deeply fragmented to the extent that you may not know who is who, including in the forces. The forces are equally fragmented. So I'm not so sure whether really we still have a solid force that can take care of the concerns, the security concerns of Ugandans. That is why, like Laura said, we need to go back to a drawing board and say, where did we go wrong? If we need to make apologies, President Museveni with his other Bushmen should make apologies to Ugandans that, you know, I think we killed people in Luwero and Rwenzori and Kampala for no good reason. What we thought we would do, we have failed to do, and therefore we beg to leave. We shall allow them free exit. There you go, and we put our country together.
Thank you very much.
In one
Thank you
piece.
very much, Honorable.
I beg.
Thank you very much, Honorable, for the submission. Because of time, I wanted to ask each one of you a question, and then a question will be answered within 2-3 minutes, strictly. Let me start with Mr. Chendo. Mr. Chendo, do you think we still have hope in the politicians? Because it seems like the politicians have not given us the roadmap. Do we still have hope in the politicians where they would say we are going to wait for the 2026, is it 2026 election? And we go there, they beat us the way they did in 2021. Do we still have hope in politics to take over the government, to make sure that government, we change government? We seem to have lost your sound, Mr. Jendo. Yes.
I'm saying,
Yes.
I want to thank you. I hope you're hearing me. All right, now what I'm saying is that I don't want to blame the politicians per se, because politicians come from us. Actually, it is the collective effort of all Ugandans. Good. I want to tell you can't tell me that some 200 army men and some 200 policemen can actually dictate. It is the responsibility of the rest of us as Ugandans
When you
who
look at all this said,
have
I ask you the same question. I bring you the same question about the politicians, that we have trouble with the politicians, and they always wait for the issue of election, and yet elections seem not to be solving the problem. Do we still have trust in the politicians to solve African problems?
I don't think it will be very wise to have any hope or trust within the politicians, because once these people, before they're elected, they're very good people. They will come to you, talk to you nicely, bring you goodies and everything. But once elected, they forget about everything. They're only selfish, egocentric individuals. I'm sorry to say so. It is upon the people, the citizenry, to take care of themselves. Look deeply on whoever person you want to elect, because what we can get from all these discussions we've had is that we have a terrorist as governments that we elect, that we put in place, because it is the same people, the security agencies, that kill people day in, day out. Even before the other terrorist groups comes in, these governments, the security agencies, they kill people day in, day out. What is it that is done about them? Nothing. Mothers cry every day, fathers cry every day. People, sisters, brothers lose their loved ones every day through government's hands. And for me, that's an act of terrorism within a country. So before we start even talking about other people coming in to terrorize people, like terrorize the country, we have to look within ourselves. We have to look upon the people that we like to put in place, the people who are concerned with our security. What is it that they're doing? What is it that the government is doing to protect us? Because without securities, a lot of things can go wrong. And like I said before, nothing can ever go right within chaos. And we've just seen, like, most of these politicians, they like thriving in chaos. They like hanging on power because of chaos. I was once in Uganda, Kampala, the headquarters, once when an election was being held. I witnessed some of the crazy things I've never witnessed in my life. The intimidation, the everything, the chaos, that's not democracy at all. So we just need to sit back, go back to the drawing board, and ask ourselves, where did the rain start beating us? Is it the people that we elect? Is it the terrorists, the extremists that are coming in our countries? And find the common problem and try and solve it on our own. Because if we wait for these politicians to help us solve our problems, then we're not going to get anything right. So everything still stops with us. And that's my take, and that's what I can say about all this discussion. So we cannot have faith, we cannot have hope, we cannot trust these politicians. These people, before they're elected, they're very good people. But after, they're terrible and horrible.
Thank you very much, Maurice. Thank you very much. Lawrence, when the government is being attacked, it's terrorism. When they are killing people, taking them out in names of yes, they say that is being patriot. What's your take? Yes, Lawrence.
Well, yes, thank you so much, Dr. Juka, once again. Well, just to supplement what my fellow panelists have actually, just submitted is, as you can see, I mean, it's hard to distinguish now, yes, between patriotism and terrorism today, because it just seems like it's in the same bucket, and we can't really, separate the two issues today. Just before terrorism became a global thing, it was, regarded, these were all liberation fronts or movements. That's why there was never any opposition group or rebel group in the 80s or 70s that was ever labeled a terrorist. Usually, most of them were all liberation fronts. But if you look at it by today's definition, all these were terrorists. And at that point, we accepted it as is. So it's in, again, that kind of regard that I'm looking at terrorism today as, I think it's one of those things that's going to disappear eventually. But while we're in it right now, we're going to have to deal with it. And yes, I've just highlighted that we have so many enemies in the region because we are there opposing or rather fighting other groups. We should expect something in return. And as of today, I think Uganda, we are ranking at about 55, number 55 globally, as into the nations that are impacted by terrorism, global terrorism, as of I think 2020, that's of last year. So you can see we haven't gotten to where countries like Afghanistan is and all these other bigger nations out there. But who knows how much time it will take for us to get there in a short time if all these groups, the ISIS that have been operating in the countries that are scoring the highest, like in Afghanistan, Iraq, Nigeria, Syria, Somalia, all those, if they do focus on us, I think it will be so bad. And we can agree that we are not a nation that is equipped to take on terrorism on a front, or rather face on like. I mean, just look at how helpless everyone was, even law enforcement, when that suicide bomber for this worked out straight in front of CPS. Yes, if the government claims they know this person, which is good, they know. Why didn't they neutralize him first? Maybe we could say he used those tactics to evade security cameras and, or anyone who would root him out. But you can see he slipped right through, straight in front of CPS. I mean, and he blew himself up. If you're to get any more attacks of this nature out there, this is a serious issue that we cannot take very lightly. Now, as again, 2019, in the terrorist report that we have here, it's supplied by the Department of Defense here, in the US, but it's something you can actually access in a Google search anyway, if you want. And they show that we haven't shared our kind of counterterrorism, violent extremist plan as a nation as of 2019. Now, a country that has been faced with terrorism per se, or as we know it today, if we haven't shared with our international partners a plan to counter these terrorist groups, that shows that maybe we don't know what we're doing. That's why we're just getting into other people's fronts and wars. It's the reason why we're in Somalia. In the beginning, yes, we had a terror attack, I think, in Lugogo. You remember that during the World Cup finals. Yes, that was bad. You could ask yourself, how did that come up in the first place? What would prompt Somalia to come and attack Uganda just like that? We've not really had all that a bad experience of history with Somalia. And you could say it's almost the same thing with the DRC. But again, we find ourselves in all these areas. Now, we've created a good number of enemies. How are we going to get out of it? I think as of, it should be this week when I think 2 UPDF officers who are based in Somalia under the AMISOM arm were sentenced to death for terrorizing or actually committing acts of violence against citizens of Somalia. I think they killed they did kill citizens of Somalia, and then they were sentenced to death. So you can see we're not carrying ourselves as peace in these nations we go to, which is quite unfortunate. And this has made headlines. I think those two officers were sentenced to death. But again, that doesn't clear, it doesn't clear that, but because you've already killed citizens, you've already, planted a bad seed right there, or bad blood. And do expect some retaliation, because the citizens are now going to start viewing you as an enemy, because you are there to attack them also and kill them. And so many times in war, these when the people on the right, like the way the peacekeepers are now, in this case, it's unfortunate that it's the UPDF who are caught in this. These things do happen. The people who are supposed to keep and maintain peace are the ones that actually terrorize the citizens, or the people in those areas. We could reverse back to what happened here in '86 and any other years before that. It's a little hard to prove, especially in the past, but today you can see everything is live. Everyone can tell you've done something wrong. And thank God to the smartphone, because all these can be shared in real time, and people get to know, and then get to the bottom of it, some kind of justice from it. In the past, it just used to sweep under the rug, and that's it. So, like my brother Maurice just shared right there about what people or citizens are supposed to do. I can assure you, if you're still waiting for your government to protect you, I think you're doomed. It's just like waiting for your government to give you food or shelter or any of those things that you need just for your basic survival. I think all those are not gonna be delivered to your doorstep. You have to fight for them. You have to guarantee them. You have to secure them yourself. So when it comes to terrorism per se and security in this regard, the citizens have to just take it up themselves to secure themselves, because I think we all know that when we're in our homes, we make sure that the doors are closed. If the doors are not enough, like I think there's a member of parliament who explained all the security protocols that some of these, people in power actually put in place. The man has burglar proof even in the house. Outside there is a dog, then there is an askari, then there is a very big perimeter wall out there, and on top of that there is electricity coming out. You can see that this person is taking all measures seriously to ensure that they are safe and their family. And I think that responsibility now gets back to the citizens to guarantee their own safety per se. The state is going to take care of certain threats. More so, if we had an invasion, a foreign invasion, then maybe I do expect the state to come in there, because people have to first guard their families, their homes, their churches, their all those other smaller groups before it gets to that. But when it comes to terrorism, and then it is directly coming and directed towards the citizens themselves, there has to be a partnership. The state has to agree that it's going to do some part, but the citizens need to do some part. Now, I want to see how the state is going to engage the citizens, train them into cooperating with them. They see something, say something. We saw that other video that circulated after, when one of the bomb squad members went to pick, it was like a gift that was hanging on a transformer, and then everyone was scared that it's maybe a bomb. Well, that is good. I'm sure someone saw something and said something. So if this shows up, it is now, I mean, when we get to that point that the citizens are cooperating, I think we're getting there. But again, of all this other kind of backlash we are getting from ISIS and the rest, how are we going to resolve that bad blood or conflict to just make sure that the citizens are protected, that they're not targeted by all these other groups? I think that's a mandate given to the state with their diplomacy and all these other foreign missions and all that. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lawrence. And finally, let me bring in Honorable Winnie. Honorable Winnie, I have my question around two of them. One is, you have been in Uganda and you have been participating in politics, and you did a very wonderful job of actually very historical and the precedent that you set about leaving the parliament by yourself, not being voted out. That is a very big precedent, which I think everybody should emulate. My concern is basically on, it seems like the politicians of Uganda have not learned, they have learned nothing in a way that every 5 years they go for election, and they experience the same thing. Dr. Kizza Besigye went to the polls in those 4 times. It's very clear that he won the votes, he won the elections, but he was not given power. He did not get power. Then in 2021, we had Honorable Kyagulanyi coming in, and then he was voted in and he never got power. What do you think, Honorable, that people tend to think that they should go back to the election regardless of not getting what they are supposed to get? Yes, go ahead, Honorable.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko. I really want to thank you for putting this together. I want to thank you, Dr. Juko. And the Ugandan population, I think they are very patient. The Ugandans are resilient. The Ugandans are firm believers in the good section. They keep hoping for the best. And because of the many wars that we have gone through as a country, and these are reflected by our constitution, the preamble of our constitution says, looking at our past, bearing in mind our past, the turbulent situations that we have gone through, Uganda thought this constitution was bringing them, or was ushering them into a new era. An era that was going to respect the rule of law, an era that was going to really give democracy a chance to thrive, because since independence, we have never seen a peaceful transfer of power from one leader to another. And I think this is the reason Ugandans keep hoping that someday it will happen. They keep hoping someday it will happen. And indeed, like you have said, since 2021 up to 2016, Dr. Besigye was winning the elections. He would go to court, and the courts of law would say, yes, we do believe that you have a case. We do accept and agree with you that there were issues with the Electoral Commission. And then the conclusion would be that we don't think they are substantial enough to cause otherwise. And this is where our problem is. However, we could also understand the judiciary. The judiciary was in a dilemma. The dilemma they were in, they are appointed by the president, though they go through the Judicial Service Commission, but it's the appointing authority now who is at play. The problem we have is that the framers of our constitution gave too much power and authority. As office is appointed by the president. The Electoral Commission, which supervises and is supposed to carry out the election process, is appointed by the president. The judges that you are supposed to go to in case you are not satisfied with the outcome of the election are appointed by the president. So you find that you are in the field with a, if I may use the example of a football pitch, you are in a ground with a team whose coach is again the one who appointed the linesman, the one who appointed the referee, and is actually the one almost kind of paying the referee and the linesman. Do you expect any fair officiation in such a game? This is the problem that we are in. But Ugandans still feel that they can change leadership using their vote. And when you see such instances of bombings happening, these are triggers of a society that is losing hope. These are signs of a society that is singing, I think, is saying enough is enough. If I have any other way out, let me use it. If there is anything I can do to get what I wanted to get democratically, let me do it. You know, some of us who are parents, at times when you become over serious with your children, you may end up getting spoiled children. You don't allow them to visit neighbors. You don't allow the neighbors to visit. You don't allow them to even live. They will start escaping from the house. So somehow, If Museveni thinks he's going to close all the ways that Ugandans are supposed to use to have democracy carried out legally and peacefully, that people can see a transfer of power from one leader to another peacefully, they will use all available means. And then I want to go back to what Maurice said. And I think that it's now incumbent upon us, the Ugandans, to rethink also our means of changing leadership. And we do what we think suits us best. We need to sit and see how to mobilize our societies, those of us who can, to a playground with the same player who has not changed linesmen, who has not, the constitution still gives him latitude to appoint the judges who are going to sit in his own case, to appoint the electoral commission that is going to participate in having him elected. He sits with the men and they agree on how to allocate. This is to be an electoral commission, but an allocation commission. To us, that is what we now believe. Because like in the recently concluded elections, really we do believe Bobby Wine won the vote. But the allocation commission decided to allocate what they allocated to him, just like they have been doing to Dr. Kizza Besigye. So it is now our duty as citizens to mobilize ourselves and say enough is enough. But that will not go without causing unnecessary problems to the community, unnecessary problems to our economy. And it takes us back to a situation that Ugandans have always wanted to avoid. That is why they have persisted. And so for me, when you talked about me in the office of the leader of opposition, my desire before I left the office was to have a thorough constitutional review. And I left with a demand of a constitutional review commission. I thought that if the constitution is fully reviewed and possibly we do a thorough surgery on it, we would take some of the powers away from the presidency to the extent that the electoral commission is not appointed by the president. The judges are not appointed by the president, for them to have some breathing space. But the fact that they are still appointed by the same man who is still ready to run for office, and he has just appointed these people at a time when we are going into the election, all they have to do is to pay back. How do you pay back someone who has given you a job that is going to keep your family? It's also to say thank you and you put him back into office. So my issue was to say, let's have a judicial review of this, a judicial and a committee that is going to review the Constitution Review Commission that was supposed to review the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, see how they give now more power to the people as stated by Article 1 of the Constitution, which says power belongs to the people. But we see that actually much of the power is into the presidency. That's why he uses it the way he wants to do. The ones who framed our Constitution of 1995 really gave a lot of power to the president and left very little of it to the citizens of the country. And the dictator is bred within the Constitution. By the way, even the Hitlers had laws that they were using, and they would say, we are using this law. Their dictatorship was legal. So even President Museveni will tell you that is electoral commission. It is independent, and they have even called it an independent electoral commission, but not independent from the president who appoints them. So to me, I do believe that really Uganda, we need to sit again and also rethink our strategy. As we tell our government to sit and rethink the strategy of how to keep the Ugandans secure, we should also sit and reconsider how do we keep ourselves secure and get rid of the mafias that are taking our country to the dogs. So it comes back to us, like my colleagues have said. I entirely concur with of the destiny of our country by bringing on board serious leaders that can be held accountable and know that they are accountable to us. You know, President Museveni surprised us. He said, I'm not answerable to anybody and I'm not anybody's worker. I work for my children and my grandchildren. Then when he saw that was becoming an issue, he said, now all Ugandans, you are my grandchildren. Can you imagine? So all these jokes, we have just been treated to a cocoon of grandchildren. All Ugandans, irrespective of your rank, irrespective of your status, you are a grandchild of Museveni. So when he is singing his lullabies, you are supposed to sleep. And as long as you sleep, he will do what he wants to do. So we need to wake up from the slumber and take on the power that is given to us by Article 1 of the Constitution, and we change the status. Get ourselves to where we want to go, where we shall walk into a Uganda that gives citizens the status that they deserve. And like my colleagues have said, I entirely concur with you, Ugandans have overslept. We need to wake up. And I think this is a wake-up call to all of us, that we are not going to massage the dictator out of power. We are not going to wait for him to.
In your mute.
Thank you very much, Honorable. The time is always our biggest enemy, and we cannot proceed more than this. Let me have each one of you to say last words in 1 minute, and then we get out of the studio. Let me have Maurice. Maurice, it has been a pleasure to have you on the tower.
I can't hear Maurice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko, for this invitation. I'm happy we've had a great discussion. I'll be pleased to join another panel again. Feel free to invite me. I'll be available. That's if I'm free. And bottom line of this discussion is that we just find that the common issues surrounding the problems surrounding Uganda, Kenya, the neighboring countries are just common. But it all is on what we, the citizens, do. When we decide to pick on people that lead us, let us be wise. And each and everything, the powers, I believe, still belong to the people. We can change every situation. And I believe with the God's guidance, nothing is impossible. We can do it. There's still hope, but not no politicians. Thank you.
You with us, and we hope to have you once again on the tower. Let me have Lawrence. Lawrence, I want you to have your last words. But I think before you say your words, what is your take about, in 1 minute, about the system of governance that we believe should cover up all these problems? The Kenyans have adopted it. Other countries have adopted it. That is the federal system of governance. Don't you think governance by federal system can help Uganda to, just within 1 minute, Lawrence?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Juko, once again. I indeed concur with you that I think some of the problems we are facing in a unitary kind of system today will be eliminated almost instantly with a federal, system in place. But it's just that in Africa, not just in Uganda, the will to move towards that direction is very low or not. Most, because you could ask yourself why if you're unarmed, if you're part of maybe any social grouping in Uganda, what you would be doing in Somalia, what you would be doing in Afghanistan or Iraq or all these other places. I think some of the questions or some of the queries that we have when we see our people, our troops move towards those areas, with the federal system, that has been a consensus at the local level that yes, we have to go there because they threaten A, B, C, D. I mean, that would make all the sense. I mean, it would resolve all the conflicts we have, the conflicts of interest we're having right now. And of course, in most cases, it's always just about the money. We are in all these areas just to make money. But like Kiza said, it's at the expense of the safety of the citizens of the country. So, I mean, that is all I can say about that. But if I may just get down to conclude on this matter is, when I look at the state of the country today, I mean, of last year, there was a query, or rather, there was a report. I think it's coming from the Institute for Security Studies. That is a report about radicalization in around Africa. And yes, there was a claim that ADF was no more indeed as of last year. So I mean, they did a study, these incredible scholars, and they found that yes, that was what was happening. And the reason they concluded that is because in 2019 there was no terrorist attack necessarily that was linked to ADF. Now, when it comes to, I think, the recent attacks that have happened this year, more so if you go back, I think, to General Katumba Wamala's attack recently earlier on this year, that's when the name ADF is, it's all of a sudden resurrected, and they're like, these are the people, and we know them. But you are the same government that claimed that ADF is no more as of last year. And fast forward to right now, I think we've had a string of incidents going to the Bijambia, which we discussed here, and now right now we're discussing the bomb, the bomb that just went off. And again, now we're coming back to say it's the ADF. Now, I think some of these issues are just rooted in the action plan that security agencies are having, or the handbook that they're working under, which is they are supposed to have a suspect within the first, I think, or rather they are supposed to have concluded their investigation within the first 24 or 48 hours. Now, like the late General Aroda Ndakairima said when he was still heading security, he was like 24 hours is indeed not, or 48 hours is indeed not enough to investigate such elaborate schemes that take place. And I think at that time it was, I forget the name of the colonel at that point, he was like, in most cases, they end up actually arresting innocent people. So if that has happened, and that is as far as back the 2003 when they were having the Terrorism Act of 2002, 2003, these mistakes were acknowledged then that they do happen, that sometimes we, the security forces, do get innocent people, incarcerated and charged, and sometimes probably sentenced. It's the reason you have, I think, Luzira and the other prisons having so many suspects of terrorism that are remanded almost indefinitely. We have a good number of them. It's just unfortunate that right now it's always the Muslims, or it has been the Muslims that are always at the focal point of this, or on the other side to blame for this. But if we can just be honest with ourselves, if we are arresting all the wrong people, we always claim to have, the state always claims to have, sorry to say we, it is always the state, they're doing their mandate. They arrest those they claim have committed these crimes, and they are recommitted over and over again in different, timelines. Now it is this year, it has just happened this week, but before that, this has been happening for the last 15 or 20 years. I ask myself, if you did arrest the right people then why are these acts coming back? And of course, now that gets global with the whole ISIS into the equation, that ISIS is funding them and all these other groups. But again, if you go back to that other report on radicalization as of today, they claim that ADF is also getting funding from the UK. They're using some UK-based bankers or systems to actually funnel funds to these people. So you can see some of the funds are coming from First World. It's because these terrorist groups have infiltrated legitimate businesses, and they do force their hand to fund these activities. So it will seem like they are paying someone, or remitting funds from maybe aid or whatever, and then it is going to end up in these groups. it is really a big issue, and we shouldn't take it very lightly. But other than that, with all this information that we've shared today, I would just appeal to the Ugandans to do the right thing, as in do guarantee your own security, take it. It's your right to secure yourself and your family and your property first before you get to the state. I always see people say the government, and I saw that other gentleman who was in that other terrorist video, he was like, no, bring the police, let them come and put out the fire. But in the first place, if you're on site before they come in and you have an fire extinguishers nearby, do take it upon yourself to put out the fire if you must. We all know sometimes the fire department gets to some of those scenes even without, water in the tanks to put out the fire.
Time is always our biggest enemy, and I appreciate all that. Let me have finally Honorable Winnie, just within 2 minutes to wrap up and say bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Juko and the fellow panelists for this panel. I have really learned a lot from sharing with all of you, and I know our listeners out there are equally learning a lot from this panel. I just would like to say, when they arrested Jamiru Mukulu, they told us now ADF is finished. The man has been in Luzira for years. He has never been heard. He has never been given bail. He has never, but now ADF is still available and around Kampala. The other issue that is triggering my mind is how come that a time when Museveni is marketing arrest and detention without trial is the time when the bombs are again happening. I think if there is anybody now a terrorist, because now I know he's going to say we have terrorists. Terrorists are now in Kampala. If we arrest such a terrorist, do we give the terrorist bail? And we shall all say no, because of course we fear. It could be another trick where he wants to have now the arrest of so many of those who are opposing him arrested and taken to detention centers and keep there for years without being given bail. Because what he's marketing currently is that the 48-hour rule should be scrapped and that they should give the government enough time to first investigate the matter. Now, in a country like ours, Uganda, where you are first arrested and then they begin looking for cases to put against you, it is very unfortunate if we are going to allow this law to happen. Indeed, we know that terrorism is real. We know that terrorism can happen in Uganda. We know that, yes, ADF was there, but our government told us they had cleared ADF and we are giving them thumbs up for clearing ADF. But if they think they have again failed on this, let them go back to the vigilantes they used to clear the ADF. Because for me, at least, I believe I was at the center of the areas that were attacked by ADF, the areas of Rwenzori, when ADF was operating from the regions of Eastern Congo. We had vigilantes. From the vigilantes, they graduated to the crime preventers. All these have been doing work in our communities to secure the citizens. Though some of them turned out to be thieves and now started robbing the citizens with the guns that government had given them. Indeed, it is our duty to secure ourselves first, and then we go to secure the country. But the country also, the leadership of the nation has rights, ensure that they are protected, ensure that such calamities do not happen. And therefore, the money that we spend, because, the budget of defense is more than any other budget in our country, and most especially with the classified expenditure. So we expect that at least some reasonable duty of care is given to the citizens. Some reasonable duty of security concerns for the Ugandans are taken care of. So indeed, it still remains our duty to look for the right leaders and put them in the right places. Until we do that, we shall still keep crying and lamenting. I've told Ugandans that we should stop reading from the book of Lamentations and we take action. Until we do that, we shall keep lamenting and lamenting and lamenting, and it may never help us. But I also want to throw a caution to all those who feel they will terrorize Ugandans, whether they are terrorists or they are from within the security forces. Kindly, the citizens are as helpless as you may imagine. The more you keep attacking, the more you give power to these hooligans. Because now they turn around and say we are the only ones who can defend you. You go equally helpless. And I can tell you, President Museveni has been saying that some of the police are Kaukun. They are mafias. Maybe that's why the bombs blasted at police, to show them that they are useless. You will hear what you will tell them. You are just useless. The bombs blasted at your neighborhood, at your address. What were you doing? I've been telling you, you are helpless.
Thank you, Honorable,
So,
very much.
thank you for bringing us here and enabling us to speak our mind. We have been burning, and I have gotten an opportunity to speak my mind. I think I'm now at peace. I will continue being peaceful and asking my Ugandans to hold up the mantle and see how to deliver themselves. Thank you so much, Dr. Juko, Lawrence, Morris, Ahmed. It's been a pleasure being on the same panel with you, colleagues. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Lawrence, Honorable Winnie, and Morris and Ahmed. It has been a pleasure having you on the tower tonight, and I think a lot of deliberations have been made, which I think people have to pick a leaf. And we cannot go beyond this. Thank you very much, our viewers on all platforms. We wish to have discussion continue, but we are limited by time. We appreciate all your time, and thank you, our producer, Dr. Samson, for the work that we are doing. We hope everything goes in the best way. Thank you. God bless you. A very good week and possibly a weekend. And basically, to our people in Uganda, we love you so much, and we always try to do the best to make sure that you are liberated. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless Uganda.